Hi, I'm Andrew Graham-Dixon, and I'm an art historian.
These ancient roads are slightly bumpy.
Calma, calma.
And I'm Giorgio Locatelli, and I'm a cook.
We've been all over Italy, revealing her gastronomic and artistic treasures. But now, we've come to the beating heart of the country, Rome.
It's a 2,000-year-old metropolis where past and present collide.
It's as unique for an art lover.
In the same moment, he's also Christ on the cross.
As it is for a food lover.
Today I'm gonna cook you a dish that is really steep in history.
We will taste traditional recipes beloved by the Romans.
I'm not leaving this
You're
here.
not going to let me have any.
And we'll plunge our forks into the cultures that have shaped the city.
The Trevi fountain, famous as Italian ice cream.
We'll explore Rome's greatest works of art and architecture.
1, 2, 3.
Full of light,
Incredible.
but also, sometimes, darkness.
It's the voice of conscience.
I think it's a truthful voice. I cannot imagine anything to do in life better than this. And with you in the back as well.
It's always been my belief that to understand Rome, you must first understand the Roman people. They've always been the driving force behind the city.
From ancient times, the Romans have acclaimed each new emperor. Roared their approval or disapproval of each new pope, and they're showing no sign of stopping now.
They're always larger than life, divided, opinionated, passionate, unpredictable. Rome might be Italy's centre of government, but no one could be harder to govern than the Romans. Our journey begins in the historic centre of Rome, the politically charged Capitoline Hill. The smallest and most important of the 7 hills of ancient Rome, it was originally the site of one of the city's most sacred temples, and later became the seat of the Senate.
Look at this.
Amazing.
Excuse me. Caput Mundi. Here we are.
But it's empty. We have the whole square to ourselves.
That is
See,
unbelievable.
that's like having an opera performance just for you.
But it is like a piece of theatre.
Yeah.
This is the place.
Yeah, no, you're right. So many things happened here. Friends, Romans, lend me your ears. After the death of Caesar, Petrarch, he comes here to receive his laurel crown. And then Napoleon declares his short-lived rule over Italy.
Not very important, don't talk about him.
But still, they always come here. This is the place.
And you know, even in the Second World War, General Clark really didn't feel like he achieved anything until he arrived here.
Well, we talk about often Michelangelo the sculptor,
Yeah.
Michelangelo the painter who created the Sistine Chapel,
Yeah.
but sometimes we forget. This is Michelangelo the architect, and he creates this beautiful star pavement, almost like this is the sun. And at the centre of it all, this great statue of Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous statues in the world. This statue stood here really for 2,000 years. The very first equestrian statue. And in Roman times, this signified the status of the ruler.
Oh.
That the emperor, he is astride the horse just as he is, metaphorically, he's in charge of his people. There he is, the great philosopher emperor, founder of modern mindfulness, author of works on happiness, extraordinary man.
Right.
The only reason it survived was that Pope Paul III, for whom Michelangelo redesigned this square during the Renaissance, he actually believed that to be a representation of the very first Christian emperor, Constantine. And that's why he allowed it to remain, because all the Roman pagan monuments,
All melted.
if they're made of bronze, they go. And so this thing only survives because of a mistake.
Fantastic.
One of the
Thanks God
most
for
famous
that.
statues in the world. And
It's beautiful. Look at the horse.
there's two Romes always. There's the Rome of the great and the powerful, and there's the Rome of the people, the Rome of the mob. And this place is where the two meet each other.
Andrew, come. I want to ask you something. You know what that means?
Senatus populos quae Romanos. It's the central idea of ancient Rome. Those who rule only rule with the collaboration
With
of
the
the people.
collaboration of the people of Rome. That means a representation of the mob, as we call it. The modern world is built on this value, on this idea that the people are part of the government. And you know, this is so everywhere in Rome. Look, the aqueduct, water, everybody goods. SPQR.
It really is everywhere.
That's it.
It's pretty unique to see the power of the people declared in every corner of their own city. Thanks to that, the Romans always maintained a strong sense of ownership over Rome throughout the Republic and the imperial eras. But the empire ended in 476 AD. Over the following centuries, it was replaced by rulers more interested in exerting power over the people.
Fantastico.
By the 8th century, Rome was the capital of the Papal States, ruled by cardinals and popes. These ambitious men of God loved nothing more than to proclaim their own vast power with grandiose monuments. But even they knew that they also had to please the people. For me, the best, most extravagant example of this papal showmanship in all of Rome is the Trevi fountain. Commissioned by Pope Clement XII in the 18th century.
As famous as Italian ice cream, it looks like it's made of ice cream. The Trevi fountain.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
In the Roman times, it's bread and circuses. In the papal times, it's fountains. That's how you really impress your people. This is the culmination of a kind of centuries-long fountain competition.
Okay.
Every pope wants to put a great fountain. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and then finally, this fountain goes up. And everybody just goes, you know what?
Maybe we should stop
Maybe
this.
we should stop now.
I mean, it's the entire side of a palace. The middle, the god of the seas, Neptune.
On the left, you've got abundance. She's emphasizing that, oh, it's not just papal extravagance. Without this water,
nothing grows.
Nothing grows. And that's continued in this lovely detail of the plants.
Yes, so-
They're sort of growing up around the fountain.
I love that one. It looks like growing on the rocks. It's like a lettuce or something.
Yeah. But I think my favorite detail are these horses, because they've got fishes' tails, horses' bodies, and they've also got wings.
Wings.
And it's
Everything is there.
And it's all invented in one go
so
here.
brilliant.
Even as it started to go up, people knew this was something pretty special. And that's why the inscriptions are so confusing, because everyone wanted to have their name on it. So it was commissioned by Clement XII. But in 1735, before the fountain is finished, he knows he's dying. So he quickly makes sure that his name is inscribed. Then, below, in the gold, we see Benedict XIV in his
Perfected.
in his time, well, basically in his time, it was actually finished and declared open.
And then if you look below, another pope, Clement XIII, I think he did some additions to the aqueduct work or something.
Okay.
And he said, no, I want my name on it too.
Yeah, it's not 3 coins in a fountain, it's 3 popes in a fountain.
But in the end, the Italian who really put his name on it, although he didn't put his name on it,
Federico Fellini.
Yes!
Michelangelo, where are you? My goodness.
Fellini, more than anyone else, with the scene in La Dolce Vita where Anita Ekberg wades into the fountain.
And her friend Marcello Mastroianni, they made it, the fountain that was already the fountain of the people of Rome became the fountain of the people of the world.
Of the world. That's right. Absolutely.
Oscar winner Federico Fellini was one of the most famous Italian film directors. Although from Rimini, Fellini found his real home in Rome. He responded above all to the people of the city, their passion, their love of spectacle, and he put them at the heart of much of his work.
In his 1960s masterpiece La Dolce Vita, a satire on Roman high society, he transformed the city's classical sights into vibrant film sets. Hollywood and its starlets flooded in, making Rome the centre of the world once again.
In the 50s, here you had Liz Taylor, Ava Gardner, Gary Cooper, everybody. And there would be people there just watching. Just standing there on the street, just watching. Look and see what's happening, who's having a coffee, who's drinking something. And Fellini was right at the base of this. He was the kind of the spark that just illuminated the whole thing.
Although Fellini could have worked with any of the big stars of the time, he never turned his back on the Romans. And in any ordinary man and woman on the street, he may find the potential extra to give him the raw quality he was always looking for in his film.
Buongiorno, Silvano.
Buongiorno, buongiorno.
Silvano Spolettini was 21 years old and working as an encyclopedia binder when Fellini picked him to be an extra in his film, Rome. From that moment, he went on to have a 60-year career, working on films such as Ocean's 12 and Gangs of New York.
Chiamato Il Faro.
They called him the lighthouse because he was the leading lights and everybody followed him. Siamo a Piazza del Popolo e questo bar qui è importante perché Fellini veniva qui.
È importantissimo.
E la gente
Veniva curiosa, qui c'erano sempre 10 persone così, buongiorno, buongiorno, buongiorno.
Ok. E lui tutti li salutava.
Salutavano.
E come lui ha scelto gli extra?
Simpaticamente, qualche cosa di viso, di cosa, non ti posso dire. Tu mi fai una parte, Silvano, io, ma non, però me devi fare, alla fine mi sono convinto.
Usava la gente normale lui sempre, usava
Più
la
che
gente
normale,
di strada.
più che normale.
Perché probabilmente ha capito che a Roma c'era c'era talmente tanta
Questa
di
gente meravigliosa,
speciale.
tutta speciale.
The capacity of the Roman to kind of reinvent themselves or to push a little bit. What are you doing this morning? I ain't got no job. I'm walking down Piazza del Popolo. Maybe Fellini's going to pick me up. Maybe he's going to put me in the film. You know, there's always a chance. I like that about the Romans, no? Like kind of, I think that's why it's the turn of the city, because of the people. We say that so many times, don't we?
It's now time to cook Andrew a classic Roman dish. Despite the opulent culinary tradition of the rich, the food that survives is the cuisine of the people.
Buongiorno.
Simple dishes that have stood the test of time, and everything that I need can be found in one of the city's hidden gems. Situated on Monteverde Hill in southwest Rome, San Giovanni di Dio is one of Rome's most vibrant markets.
I love this great amount of greenery everywhere. You see how much, it's like, this is bieta. It's like all these different type of spinach. They're very much at the base of what they cook. I mean, you don't see anything that is not seasonal here, do you?
It's
almost like,
it's all
everything.
grown
Look at
around the
that.
corner. That doesn't say flown in from Israel. That's like driven in by Enzo this morning.
Andrew, That's what we want to buy.
Ah, the Romanesco.
Buongiorno. Volevo comprare 2 romanesco.
One of the main ingredients on my dish are this beautiful Romanesco broccoli.
Va bene quello lì, perfetto. Yeah, 2 di quelle e 2 carote.
4,55. Grazie.
Next, it's time to buy the main ingredient.
So what are we going to buy?
We're gonna buy a razza. It's called arzilla in Rome, and it's called skate in England.
All the fish have so many different names.
No, it has about like 12 different names in Italy.
Right.
Arulla, zilla, zillizza, zazzazza, una cosa...
So you better get your skates on.
Allora, noi vorremmo comprare una razza.
Bene.
Sì? Guarda che roba, Andrew. Bellissimo.
Un piatto prettamente romano.
E questo, he already knows what I'm gonna cook.
Which
He
is?
says, zuppa
Pasta e
d'arzilla,
broccoli con l'arzilla.
pasta e broccoli con l'arzilla. Got the
Ed era un
romanesco.
piatto prettamente romano, che non lo facevano da nessuna parte, solo a Roma.
Bene.
Quanti anni che sei nel mercato?
62.
62 years he's been in the market. E hai sempre
Avevo
fatto
11 anni quando stavo qua.
E ha fatto sempre questo.
Questo banco c'ha 100 anni.
It's 100 years that they have this stall on this market.
Wow.
Lavora un po' dove siamo,
No, l'abbiamo comprato. Vedi? He says, do you want some parsley? Because when they serve the fish, they give you present a little bit of parsley. What do you want more than that?
Grazie.
Grazie, buona giornata.
Arrivederci. So we have everything we need now.
Now we have everything we need.
So we can go and eat.
Let's go and cook first.
So I forgot that bit. Una.
Andrew, today I'm gonna cook you a dish that is really steep in history.
I'm going to cook a delicious centuries-old fish soup with vegetables.
Let's start with the fish first.
The skin of the skate is very spiky, so it's important to scrape it properly under the top.
Okay, look, Andrew. So, you can see the wings, which are the eatable part. We're gonna go pretty, straightforward in, like that. We're gonna go around it.
As you cut, you can feel the blade eating the bones, so just follow it the length of the fish. You also have to remove the guts, head and tail until you're left with just 2 beautiful wings.
Okay, so now
They really do look like angel wings, don't they?
this is the most important bit. Okay?
The trickiest job is to remove the skin from the wings of the skate.
Of course. That's from the electricity department. Very good. You'd be a really good executioner or torturer, I think. You've got all the skills.
Yeah, if you carry on like that, chatting, I'll definitely execute you before the evening. So here they are. Usually when you go to the market, this is what you get.
But you're going to use everything from that. You're not just going to use the wing. You're going to use all the bones and everything to make a stock.
That's what I want to make, a beautiful stock
Cool.
with that. Okay, so I got my pan.
I make the fish stock with carrots, celery, onions, and a couple of bay leaves.
That's what they used to put on Julius Caesar's head, isn't it?
That's right.
Nice
Bit
crown.
of peppercorns.
And finally, a couple of juniper cloves.
Interesting.
Couple of them, just to give them a little bit to sustain the flavor.
Interesting.
Okay?
Next, I put the fish bones in with the vegetables, as well as the 2 wings.
So we put them in, both of them.
Oh, you put the wings in too?
That's right, cold water. The last thing that goes in there is a little splash of wine. Okay, the idea is this then. I put that on a very tiny fire, yeah? I don't want it to go fast. You must remember one thing, the fish bones release all the flavors in about 20 minutes. So then, if you want to make it strong, you have to reduce it. This is all about very intelligently stealing the flavor out of these things, yeah?
You quite often talk about persuading
You need to
the
persuade
food to cooperate with you.
You have to make it fall in love with you and you fall in love with it, and then you make a beautiful thing out together.
As the stock is heating up, it's important to skim off any floating froth to make sure that it's clear when cooked. After 15 minutes, we can take the skate wings out and let them rest. So, I locked a little bit. So I'm gonna let that cook and hold on. I'm gonna show you now what I'm doing. Okay. We're gonna prepare the broccoli.
Oh, I love these.
Yeah, such a beautiful thing. I'm gonna cut them into really lovely sort of florette, as they call it in English, no? And some of these will become a little bit more overcooked and melt away in the sauce. Some of these will be really nice and give you a little crunch, you know? Next, I start preparing the base for the soup. Bit of olive oil, onions, celery, carrots, garlic, the Romanesco broccoli, and the anchovies.
Ooh.
And I put it there. Okay, I'm gonna let those melting away with it.
Good smell.
Vino in it. You hear that? That's all I want. Few pieces of tomato, and to give it an absolutely amazing color, tomato paste. And this is my stock. I'm gonna put some of the stock on that. I'm gonna let it cook for at least 10 minutes. Time to finish the dish by adding a short type of pasta that's perfect for soups. Don't forget to stir it. You don't want the pasta to stick at the bottom.
Oh, so that's the finishing touch. Oh, what a lovely idea for a dish.
Okay, you can prepare the table now because we're nearly there, eh? Come, Andrew. Whoa.
Oh, the smell is fantastic. Giorgio, that is fantastic. This is Rome. Intenso, it's intense, it's like...
Also, the broccoli really has this really nice flavor and it's kind of like has a slightly little bitterness to that.
Yeah, if you came to Rome and you were a pilgrim, not so much money, you might end up eating this.
Definitely. That was the staple.
Really?
Absolutely.
If you go back in time.
That's it. The ideal dish for a tired pilgrim. Perfected, no wonder, here in Rome.
Following the Counter-Reformation, the Catholic Church did its utmost to restore Rome's spiritual authority, raising the great dome of St. Peter's and building a multitude of other churches as beacons to the faithful. Thousands of ragged pilgrims in search of redemption flooded the city, making Rome a city of stark contrasts. Rich architecture, alongside desperately poor people living on the streets. And nobody captured that better than the painter Caravaggio. I want to show Giorgio two of my favourite paintings. Breathtaking works that would give the travellers hope and consolation.
So, Giorgio, this is the burial chapel of Tiberio Cherasi. He was the principal banker to the Pope, had a lot of money, but he knew he was dying, and so he commissioned the paintings in this chapel. Two of them are by Caravaggio. This one shows St. Peter, and immediately you are face to face with Caravaggio's great revolution. Like Fellini so many years later, to cast the people from the streets of Rome, and to put them in his paintings. And he's doing that here with this terrible scene, the crucifixion of St. Peter. It's almost as if he might have used as his model that poor man, that beggar that we saw on the steps of the other church around the corner. And in his own time, these paintings were really shocking.
Oh, it's shocking now with the imagery that we are used to, but it's still quite powerful, this one, you know. And that dirty feet, it just says so much.
Because Italian painting at that moment, before Caravaggio, was very artificial, very mannered, very contrived, very little smell of reality in it. And suddenly with Caravaggio, you've got Peter's sunburnt face, his scrawny torso, his agonized expression, and Caravaggio's painting it almost as a grisly scene of hydraulic engineering, man-driven. We're going to lift him up, put him on the cross. But I think also Caravaggio is giving hope, because this church is the first church that you'd come to when you enter Rome, because that outside was once the gate to Rome. Now there's a road outside, but in the past it was fields.
You had dirty feet, you identify yourself with them.
Yeah. But Cherasi, whose mortuary chapel this is, he was clever. Not only did he commission Caravaggio to decorate the chapel, but he also got the leading other painter of Rome at the time, Annibale Carracci, to paint the main altarpiece. Below you've got the apostles, and it shows the moment when the Madonna's soul is assumed into heaven. Up she rises into the skies. This is really the dawn of the Baroque style. And what the Baroque style exists to do is to make us, the worshippers coming to church, feel a little bit smaller, a little bit on our knees, a little bit, in awe. This is a painting that says, yes, you can come here to worship, but remember your place. And what's interesting is that the Carracci painting, that was installed before Caravaggio painted his second picture. And what did he do? Paints this enormous horse, and he puts the horse's arse in the face of the Virgin of Carracci, as if to say, this is what I think of your elevated Christianity.
I like this Caravaggio guy, isn't it? He's quite cool.
You really?
He's cool, man.
This is Saint Paul, or Saul, as he was, at the moment of his conversion. That's the subject of the painting. This is the moment on the road to Damascus, and he becomes a Christian.
Boom, you can hear it. Yeah, I never fell off the horse. I fell off a few motorbikes, but never fell off the horse. But I can, kind of like, you can see he's been struck, and he's almost underneath the horse.
Caravaggio means the horse and the groom, who looks a bit like Joseph, I think, to evoke the idea of the nativity. So you do a kind of double take, because you look down from them and you expect to see the baby Jesus by the manger, but no, you see Paul. But then, after you've done the double take, I think that's when the meaning unfolds, because yes, at this moment of his conversion, Paul is like the little baby Jesus in the manger. He's lying helpless on the ground. And then Caravaggio, with a stroke of genius, I think, has Paul stretch out his arms. So in the same moment, he's also Christ on the cross. So light floods him. He is spiritually enlightened. It's one of the most amazing pictures in the world.
I think this is one of the best paintings I've ever seen in my life. He is a communicator to the people like me. And that is something that I would not come to the church to have a look at that.
So you vote for Caravaggio?
2-0.
For centuries after his death, Caravaggio was sneered at as a crude and vulgar artist.
He was rediscovered partly by Italian filmmakers, including Fellini, who love his cinematic use of light, as well as the way he used real people.
And since the mid-20th century, Caravaggio's reputation has been on the rise. He's now one of the world's best-loved painters.
Va bene.
This is the old Roman way.
Oh, man.
Julius Caesar used to come down this road, man. Got to be excited about it.
Rome is the political center of Italy. Nowhere else will you find so many politicians and bureaucrats, or so many limousines stuck in traffic. Ordinary Romans are used to rubbing shoulders with those in power, and they are prepared to put up a fight.
Let's go and have a coffee.
Romans love nothing more than discussing politics from their first espresso of the day.
To be the mayor of this town, I think is the hardest job. Whatever you do, you always have somebody who says the contrary.
How many bureaucrats are there in Rome?
Well, that's
Ci
the
sono
thing.
quanti burocrati a Roma?
Troppi. Too many. But at the end of the day, Rome will be always Rome because of the people of Rome.
Yeah.
You can put as many laws as they want, but they will do whatever they want. Because they've been doing that for the eternal time. That's why they've been here for such a long time. Because that's what they do. They do what they want.
I read in the paper that the highest paid head of traffic wardens in the world is the head of the traffic wardens of Rome.
He gets paid more than the president of the United States.
Yeah, exactly. He gets paid like £500,000. And still, everybody parks where they like.
Everybody does what they want.
I want to take Giorgio to see a monument that hails the moment when Rome first became the centre of modern Italian politics. At the end of the 19th century, Italy was still divided into many states under different rulers. But in 1861, the Savoy family, under their king Vittorio Emanuele, had placed their stamp on the unification of the country. And 10 years later, declared Rome its capital. For the Roman people, it also meant the end of over 1,000 years of papal rule. So, to celebrate this moment, and the crowning of Italy's first king, the Vittoriano was erected right in the centre of Rome, next to the Imperial Forum.
What a great beauty.
Which one? I like these beds.
I'm not too
I'm not so sure about
that big one over there.
When you see it in the context of real Roman ruins, I think you get a sense of how just crazily enormous, how glaringly white, how astonishingly pompous is the monument to Vittorio Emanuele. I mean, this is Vittorio Emanuele coming to Rome saying, Italy, one Italy, under me. And he's basically trying to replace Marcus Aurelius, who's in the back, obscured almost from the view of the Romans by this great white elephant with him on his horse. He's saying, I'm the new emperor.
Yeah.
It's the size of a mountain. I mean, I think it's 70 metres high, more than 100 metres across. It was inaugurated, I think, in 1912 and finished 13 years later, the greatest job creation scheme in the history of Italian sculpture.
The Roman never liked. You know what they call this? They call it the typewriter.
The typewriter.
Yes, it looks like a typewriter. You know, one of the old ones that you just swings along.
And I think that's the whole problem, though, is that the language that's being typed out on the typewriter is not really Roman, not Italian. This is the classicism of Germany. I mean, it could almost be made of ice. It's glaring, it's white, it's enormous. It's like the Valhalla. This is Wagner, not Verdi.
Yeah. The whiteness really puts it like at odds with everything else, because I don't know, like, look at those trees, looks in harmony with those church and things. You kind of like the shapes are all working, these columns, and suddenly it's like a eyesore, isn't it? Think about the Capitoline Hill, it's just behind there. So in order to build this, what did they build it on top? Yeah. Surely there must be something.
Yeah, no, they did. They knocked down some temples. They covered up a piece of ancient Roman history to create the modern monument. I mean, this is absolutely in the centre of the city. And I think that's again part of the problem the people here have had accepting it. They know that this has abolished part of their own history. And so there he is on his horse, the new Marcus Aurelius, Vittorio Emanuele II, and he's saying, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. But I think they never really did lend them their ears.
I really don't like the typewriter, but the Savoy family rule wasn't all bad news for Rome. In fact, one of my favorite districts was created under them. A place made for the people, and I really want to show it to Andrew. At the beginning of the 20th century, from being a sleepy village, Rome rapidly became a frenetic European capital. The Savoy family started building social housing for workers, such as the Garbatella. Once at the very edges of the city, and now right in the center, only 10 minutes by scooter from the Colosseum.
Here we are in Garbatella, man.
Where are we going? Up the stairs?
Yeah, let's go up there. Come and have a look at this. Garbatella, garbato means to be kind, you know? So this is a place where you're welcome. And look, we are in the center of town.
This is not the Rome that I know. I mean, this is so peaceful. Where are the guys on motor scooters zipping past you?
Absolutely. But look, the architecture is incredible. Look at this place.
But this is the 1920s. When I see a house like that, I mean, my association is to think that suddenly I am actually in the countryside in Italy.
You have a little patch where you can grow his little basil and his little potato or tomato.
But what I love about it is that it is so Italian. It's a little bit chaotic, a little bit unkempt, but in a very beautiful way. Like, look where they've got the two pipes presumably were there one time, but they haven't bothered to paint it back. There's the plaster around the window.
This is charm.
It's charming, it's lovely. It's really like a little paradise. From the people I've seen living here, quite a lot of them are getting on a bit now. It's as if they are part of the original community. People in their 60s, people in their 70s.
You want to live with the people that you love, and then you want to die with the people that you love. You're just surrounded by it. The sense of community makes you feel like a human.
Buongiorno, buongiorno.
Ma
Come si chiama il cane?
Pepe.
Buongiorno Pepe.
Cacio e pepe. Perfetto.
Salve. Buongiorno.
In designing the Garbatella, Rome's urban planners were greatly influenced by the English trend known as the Garden City movement of the early 20th century. So, in a way, this is a Roman version of Hampstead Garden Suburb in London.
But the character of this village on the edge of the city will change in the 1920s, when the fascists came to power.
Fascism, in its drive for modernisation, took an iron grip of Italy and, most of all, Rome. Thousands more workers from the countryside flooded into the city. And to house them, a new generation of architects came up with grander designs and bigger buildings for Garbatella.
You see, Andrew, just round the corner, it changes completely.
Wow, and they're so grand.
They are, aren't
They're
they?
like palaces.
This style is called Barocchetto.
Barocchetto,
That's it.
which means little Baroque.
Yeah, baby Baroque.
Baby Baroque, it's fantastic because it is. That's like a Baroque palace, except you'd see these heads normally on an aristocratic palace.
That's right.
But here, the heads are on the side of a council flat block, and they're the heads of people from the 1920s or maybe the 1930s. Look at her little bob hairstyle.
Unbelievable, isn't
It's
it?
fantastic. Look, there's a sort of like a gargoyle on the front of the house.
It's not just building. I can imagine things happen behind those closed windows, all those little houses with all this little kitchen, a lot of this lovely food that come from the countryside, from the connection and they have. The market is very alive. This is the spirits of Rome, is in these people.
Yeah.
You know, everything comes and goes in this city. Everything gets buried. It's just the people who stays on top.
It's unusual, pretty amazing, really, to see a fully working community, almost like a village, right in the middle of a 21st century city.
Vieni via di qui.
Guarda che bella la Garbatella, Andrew. If I had to choose to live somewhere in Rome, I would love to live in Garbatella.
Via.
I think it fits my style.
Yeah, I can see you just in your vest, like cooking outside, maybe. Now we're going back onto the cobbles.
You can feel the ancient power of the people all over Rome, even in some unlikely places, such as the palaces of the richest noble families. Because they knew just how hard it was to rule in this fickle town, they built their palazzi like fortresses to keep the mob at bay. And none is more fortress-like than the stunning Palazzo Farnese.
Palazzo Farnese.
What a palace, eh? It's got 40 windows just on the front. Amazing.
The Farnese family was one of the great forces in Rome from the 15th to the 18th century. Many military commanders and cardinals, 2 popes and the Queen of Spain can be found in their family tree. And thanks to their huge riches, the family constructed the most magnificent high Renaissance dwelling in all of Rome, designed by Antonio da San Gallo the Younger and a chap called Michelangelo. I'm taking Giorgio to see one particular room with a truly amazing series of frescoes by Annibale Carracci. The same artist Caravaggio had mocked with the rear end of a horse. Here, Carracci was on top form.
Look at this, the sun has come to greet us. Now don't look up, okay? That's the only rule.
Okay.
You can look at the garden.
Wow, we're right in the middle of Rome.
Okay, now we're gonna do it. Okay?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Look at that. Look at that. Started 1597, finished 1608, 11 years in the making. And the theme of the whole thing, the power of love, a force from above. Really, that is the subject. You've got Diana falling in love, despite her vows of chastity, falling in love with the shepherd Endymion, sleeping muscle man. You've got the abduction of Galatea. You've got Jupiter and Juno. We've got Bacchus, of course, and Ariadne, and here he is in his golden carriage drawn by tigers with rams, symbols of sex and lust. It's almost too much, isn't it?
It really, it is incredible. The figure of the lady is so beautiful, rounded and beautiful.
They're not in the model of the modern supermodel, let's put it that way.
That's for sure.
They're not skin and bone.
But they're much more beautiful.
It's quite a thing. And it was all commissioned by a cardinal, Odoardo Farnese.
Why would a cardinal have something like that in his house?
Well, actually, in the Renaissance, they weren't prudish. There was a tradition of noble families commissioning, usually on the occasion of a marriage, quite sexy, secular images. Almost like I call them encouragements to procreation. This is a message from the cardinal to all of his children.
This is how you do it, just get on with it. Isn't it? It's just, it sounds a little bit like that, doesn't it?
Yes, I don't know what that is in Latin, but I think what the room as a whole is saying is that for us as a dynasty to uphold our power, we must breed. And something really neat, look at this. This is thanks to the French, actually, who've had this as their embassy for so long. They cleaned this room, and look what they found. Carracci had actually left some of his sketches. So when he was making the ceiling, he was actually doing these little sketches.
There's actually quite a sad postscript to the story of this amazing masterpiece. The Cardinal, for whatever reason, was a really mean guy. So when Caravaggio finished and finally asked for his payment, the Cardinal got his accountant to do all the sums. And he said, well, you've been living in the palace for 11 years, so we're going to charge you for the board and lodging. So we're going to pay you £100,000 for doing the picture, but we're going to deduct £99,500 because you've been staying in the palace.
No way.
Really, they paid him 500 scudi for 11 years' work. Caravaggio was so upset, he just falls into this terrible depression, and then that's the end of him. He dies basically of a broken heart for not being paid. Maybe you should have been his agent, Giorgio.
I could have definitely been his chef.
The paintings would have been even better.
Eventually, you could say justice was served. The family extinguished in 1731 when the last Duke, Antonio Farnese, died without direct heirs. The palace has been the French embassy for the last 81 years, keeping Caravaggio's masterpiece a bit of a secret. But now, the doors are open once a week, and he's gradually being rediscovered.
We really have to have some lunch now. So after the power of love, I want to remind Andrew of the power of pasta. This is one of the classics.
You're gonna learn how to make a carbonara, a real carbonara, Andrew.
We are heading to Roscioli, a small restaurant that has been in the same family for 4 generations. Nabil the cook is waiting for us.
This is Nabil. This is Nabil cooks the best carbonara in the world, I'm telling you.
So what makes the Roman carbonara different from the one that we might eat in a restaurant in London?
Da. Che cos'è quello?
Questo è il guanciale.
Guanciale. You don't use any belly, you use the cheek, the end of the cheek and the neck. And when you give a recipe with bacon, you make a big mistake because the consistency of this when it's cooked is a completely different one than the bacon will be.
So rule number one, never cook carbonara with bacon. I think a lot of people will be quite surprised by that.
Rule number 1, no bacon, no pancetta. The spaghetti are the main ingredients, obviously. They've been dry, you know, like that. So they are just going to cross. But touch these spaghetti. They're rough. Can you feel the roughness of that?
Yeah,
so that means a trafilatura a bronzo. That means then the sauce, which is kind of like the eggs is cooked and kind of be creamy, you will stick to it.
Guanciale, adesso
Okay?
spostiamo il
Here we
guanciale,
are.
vede come
Now,
questa è calda la padella.
really hot pan.
Ok,
It's gonna
senza
get-
olio, senza niente.
No oil, nothing. Just the guanciale in it. You see, it's screaming already.
Croccante di fuori e dentro il morbido, tenero.
Yeah. So
Okay.
very crispy on the outside and really tender inside. And when you bite into that, you have an
Esplode nella bocca.
explosion of flavor in your mouth.
Allora,
Turning the spaghetti, very important. Don't let
guarda,
them lie
adesso
down.
passiamo
Yes.
lato
He's going to
passaggio.
prepare the eggs now.
La
Let's have a
base?
look. Okay, the base.
Ok, io metto un rosso e circa un quarto di bianco.
Yeah.
Di chiara.
1 egg yolks
Aiutare
and
se
a
non è
little
più
bit of egg
spumosa.
whites because it becomes more foamy if he does that. Beautiful eggs as well.
Ok, un po' di pecorino.
Parmesan and pecorino mixed together. Like 2 nice pinch. Pepper, always
Sarawak.
they love pepper in Rome. Very important.
Toasted Sarawak pepper.
Pepper, that's so important.
Ok, e questa adesso
Look at
è la
that.
base.
That's the base. Okay, and then
So
everybody
no
talks-
garlic, no bacon.
No, are you crazy? Don't start to do the American way. Don't think about putting too many things in it. It's very essential, it's very clean, it's very neat.
Questa è una pasta da molto al dente.
He judges the pasta just with the eye.
Just by look at it.
Però
He
c'è un
just looks at
fatto.
the pasta. It doesn't need a timer or anything like that.
Allora,
Okay,
adesso
look.
guarda,
Look what he's doing now. Huh? Okay, he's
questa è la
gonna
parte
take a
importante.
little bit of the
Guanciale.
guanciale in,
E in più, una cosa molto importante,
a little bit of the
un po' di
fat.
grasso.
Yeah, a little bit of that.
Grasso e acqua. Si forma la cremina.
Yeah, water and the fat that's gonna make it creamy. Rule 3, no cream, no cream. And it's the spaghetti goes in, a little bit wet, you see? He left them a little bit wet.
È molto molto asciutta.
Yeah?
Con un po' di acqua diventa più cremosa, guarda.
This is vital, you see? The cooking water. which already got salt. You notice we haven't seasoned anything. Look what he's doing. See? So he knows now, by touching the edge, he knows now that the eggs is creamy and is cooked.
Basta, non c'è bisogno di la panna.
Vai. Let's
beautiful.
go. A bit of cheese around
E pepe.
and a little bit of pepper on top.
Wow.
Questa è una carbonara molto classica.
Questa è la
piatto.
carbonara di Roscioli. Da bene.
Grazie.
Adesso l'assaggiamo.
Assaggia, infatti, ecco, certo, è normale.
Wow. That looks...
Vede com'è bella? È legata ma non incollata. Delicata. Si sentono tutti gli aromi.
He's not going to let me have any.
You must try to convey to everybody the flavor here. That really hint of pepper, the cheese, and the creaminess of the eggs, almost like a fluid mayonnaise or a béarnaise or an hollandaise. That's what you're trying to do.
It is.
You know?
And then this absolute explosion of almost like a farmyard taste. That explosion of the guanciale.
Unbelievable.
Buonissimo. Grazie.
Grazie a voi, è un piacere. Grazie.
Ti ringrazio,
Grazie
veramente. This was a masterclass on carbonara.
It was just...
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank
Non
you
è
very
pesante,
much.
non ti preoccupare, guarda.
No, ne
Grazie.
mangiamo un'altra adesso.
Ok, nessun problema.
You know, Giorgio, if you give me one more plate of pasta, we're going to have to buy a bigger motorbike.
We're going to finish our journey in modern Rome, the Rome of the 20th century. The most famous Italian dictator in living memory was Benito Mussolini, a man whose granite jaw and megaphone rhetoric was only matched by his severe architecture. You can still see his buildings all over Rome, buildings that shouted at the Italian people, telling them to work harder, to be on time, to leave the past behind and go to war. But in this great city of the people, Mussolini had his opponents, even if their voices weren't always heard. For proof of that, I'm taking Giorgio to the Gallery of Modern Art, where they have some of my favourite works of art from the dark fascist years. Here, we can still see another side of Rome, the one that never submitted to fascism and Mussolini.
Look at this figure, Attilio Torresini's sculpture called Riposo at Rest, but she looks almost as if she might be eavesdropping on us.
She looks so beautiful and so unsexualized, but beautiful.
And something slightly sad about her, I think. I think there's an air of melancholy.
You think it's melancholic?
Maybe I'm reading that in. I mean, I know that the sculpture was made in 1939, so I just have this feeling that maybe there's the intimations of war, there's some sense of
That's a beautiful Italian girl.
trouble ahead. Well, if we're talking melancholy, vieni con me, because one of the masterpieces of Italian melancholy is in the next room. This is what's been arranged for us. A private screening of the masterpiece of Massimo Campigli, and it's just a wonderful...
So we can sit down.
We can sit down. The film has started already. It's called The Fisherman's Wives. It's an oil painting, but it's a bit like a fresco. The forms are very simple, they're very solemn, they're very monumental. There's something of the solemnity of a religious painting. These women are waiting. You see, there they are on the left. They're just holding each other. The picture was painted in 1935. So again, fascism is at its height. What could be less fascist than this? Beautiful picture.
Show the sorrow of the person that loses her husband. It's almost like it's like saying, don't allow your kids to go to war, and they're never coming back.
I think that's why this is a painting that once you start looking at it, it does catch in the throat. And I think, are those the colours of Italy in the middle? Are those the colours?
There is a bit of green, there's some red, there's some white.
He enlisted in the First World War in 1916, but then during the war and immediately after the war, he was so horrified by all of that he said, I am now forever going to be a pacifist. But I think it's important to look at these artists because, as so often in history, the people who make the most noise, the futurists with Marinetti as their spokesman banging his drum, with Mussolini with his megaphone, everybody knows about them, but nobody knows about these artists. It's a much quieter voice, but it's the voice of conscience.
I think it's a truthful voice. It makes me think what could have been if there was more people like him. They would have never ended up in that Second World War. They would have never did what they did to each other. It's just terrible. And these guys were absolutely right. Erano lungimiranti.
Maybe in the end, that's what artists are for. To see what we don't see.
See.
We're at the end of our journey through a city that is defined by its people. So where better to finish than with a work of public art, proclaiming the eternal might of Rome on the wall of a modern building.
Look what they've put on the side of the apartment block. This huge, fantastic, I think, mural of a wolf, the symbol of Rome.
It is unbelievable. It's so real, isn't it?
You can almost hear it snarling. I love the hairs. And I love it when this evening sun catches it. The wolf is there, and this ordinary building suddenly becomes, wow! What things did you like the best of the things that we saw on this trip? The Caravaggio?
Well, those ones were unforgettable, man. And that St. Paul and the story of the asses. Everybody showing the ass to each other. I thought that was fantastic. Another popular thing that I really like about was the Garbatella.
Oh,
that was so beautiful.
I remember also the crunch of the guanciale in the carbonara, the perfect carbonara. If you were going to feed that wolf anything, you'd give him a really big piece of that guanciale.
This is the wolf of the people, like aggressive and opinionated and Roman till the core. I like that kind of Rome. I like that Rome that stay alive through the people. And the Pope comes and changes, and the president comes and changes, the kings come and change, but the people of Rome, still the people of Rome. They are the one who rules.
Yeah, they really are.
You remember that one? SPQR.
Senatus Populus
Que Romanos.
I think it's dinner time.
And in Rome, dinner is always quite good, isn't it?
Not bad.
Not bad.
Next time, we uncover more of the hidden Rome.
If you look in the middle, staring out at us, a painting of the 1st century AD, and there are not many of those. So this is a kidney sandwich.
We try centuries-old traditions.
Oh, mamma mia.
La Romanità.
We tasted Romanity.
And we pay a visit to one of Rome's greatest art collections.
Not a bad room to have a party in.
The Open University has produced a free guide to interesting places to visit while you are in Rome.
To order your free copy, please call 0300 303 3555 or go to bbc.co.uk/Rome Unpacked and follow the link to the Open University.